As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Penny Dye,
Present.
Meg Browers, Meg, can you come off mute and just want to make sure you don't have a technical issue? Looks like you have a technical. There you go.
I'm having a tech issue. Can you guys hear me?
There you go. That's why we do this. Rima Sherry?
I'm here.
Great. So it looks like it's just the four of us as members at the moment. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Vicky Marsh,
Yes.
Tucker Holland.
Quasi.
Yes. Just be noted that Tucker's under the weather and working his way through this meeting. And Haley Cook.
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Let's see, Billy Cassidy.
I'm here, so.
Thank you, Bill. Dave Arminetti.
Yes, hi, Mr. Chairman.
Laura Silber.
Yes, I am here.
Great. And then I think we have some members of the public. Good afternoon. This is an open meeting. The Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening via video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public might join. For Zoom, please note that the meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating by a video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless otherwise noted. We'll turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, we cover ground rules for effective, clear conduct of our business. I'll introduce each member on speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, we'll go down the line of members, inviting each to provide comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. Members, if you wish to engage conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. After members have spoken, the chair will afford the public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged. Finally, each vote taken during this meeting will be conducted by a roll call. With that, we will move to the agenda. Convene open session. Approval of agenda or any changes or movement or addition to the agenda. Okay, seeing no action for movement or changes, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as it's written.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Rima, second by Meg, by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye.
Dave's here too, I think.
I don't see Dave.
Oh, nope, I'm sorry.
Okay. Item number 3, approval of the minutes. I don't even know if we can cover this one because Penny, I'll come to you in a second because I need to abstain because I wasn't at that meeting. So I don't know that with 3 people can even take action. So
Okay.
Penny, I'll open to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion that we push this off until our next meeting. I had a number of edits, I guess that Haley didn't receive them when I sent them yesterday. So I think we should just push this off till January.
Okay. So there's a motion, Penny made a motion to move the approval of the minutes from 11:15. I guess I shouldn't even do this. Rima, will you do this?
Yes, Penny has made a motion to move the minutes to the next meeting, approval of the minutes from 11:15:22. Do I hear a second?
I can second that.
Okay, is that Meg? Great, all right, so, and Brian, I think you can vote on moving.
On moving the item, but not the,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so Brian,
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
Penny,
Aye.
and
Great.
I'm an aye. Okay, back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Rima. Item number 4 is public comment. We have a number of members of the public. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'll open up for hands. All of your screens are dark, so I can't see anybody if you want to have a comment. Mary, I see you just went on their screen, but I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Floor is
Okay.
yours. This is Mary
Oh.
Mack.
Okay, yeah, I just had an idea about, it involves the steamship authority. Perhaps they can get involved in, it's kind of like twofold. It would be limiting traffic by, putting like, I'm having a hard time articulating it.
That's okay. Take your time.
Okay, so the idea is the steamship authority could allow 1 car per address. And any additional cars could be charged, I don't know, a couple $100, maybe 300, whatever. And that extra money could be funneled into the Affordable Housing Trust, and it might also deter people from bringing so many cars. I don't know if the Steamship Authority works with you guys in that way, or the affordable housing problem, or attainable housing. But I was thinking that, and for every additional car per address, even more money. It's just an idea.
Mary, thank you. I think that there's definitely an interesting concept related to the steamship and it being the funnel point for vehicles on Nantucket. I'm not fully sure I understand how it would directly relate to affordable housing units, but I'd love to chat with you more or offline and kind of work on your idea. I do have you on your other ideas on the agenda later in the meeting that you emailed over for us to touch base on as well.
Well, it would be money funneled in for purchasing units. I don't know I'm not sure why you don't understand what I said.
No, it's I guess I recognize you're considering a fee. I just don't a fee for the ferry that be directed to affordable housing. I guess.
Yes, and for every additional car, more money, more money.
Right. I guess I just need to understand kind of the concept a little bit more
Okay,
and what it would look like.
all right.
I'm pretty visual on writing things out.
Okay, all right. Well, that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
And thank you for both the public comment and the email with your other ideas. So I appreciate your participation.
Okay, and then there's one other thing, and I'll make it short. That mobile unit near the old fire station. I don't know why we can't have these mobile units on town property in a temporary way. Just, all these people that are writing, I need housing, it's such an emergency right now, and I don't understand why, if that unit can be there for 3 years, why can't there be temporary housing like that, looking better than that, to help these people in this town? So,
I don't have an exact answer for you, but I'm going to give you my best shot. That is used as office space, not as a residence. And currently the Mass Building Code doesn't allow for temporary residences in a way that we could use them effectively. I do believe that the Plus Department is looking at that in greater detail.
okay, all right, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
I'll open to other members of the public for public comment. Dave, are you on the line? I was under the impression you wanted to make an announcement about
Yeah,
Turner.
I am, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I can't find the raise hand icon for some reason.
Okay, well, I knew that you wanted to speak, so here we are.
As always, my technological abilities are a little limited. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, and staff, everyone. It's Dave Arminetti from Richmond. Just wanted to take a second this afternoon. Tucker had mentioned to me in a separate conversation last week on another matter that it might be helpful just to let the public as well as the board know that we have officially started the marketing and outreach under our affirmative fair housing marketing plan for the next phase of our Meadows 2 apartment units, which the board has been integrally involved in terms of leading that effort through both public support, financing, and our efforts with DHCD. And Haley's been nice enough here to put up the one-page advertisement. So we started the marketing for this phase, which is 48 units, 24 of which are AMI restricted, the board may recall, in a range of 70%, 80%, 100%, 120% AMI restriction. So those packages have been out for about a week. SEB Housing is our consultant, as they have been previously in all of our phases. So everything's posted on their website. Things will be posted shortly on the Housing Navigator website, which is the old CHAPA posting that's now changed and evolved a little bit. And we're also distributing the information packages and the applications through our normal channels in town at Broad Street, at the Athenaeum, and at our office at the Meadows Project. So all that's available online throughout a couple different spots in town. As has been our practice before, we make this information available multilingually, English, Portuguese, and Spanish, to hopefully try and make that outreach as maximum effective as possible. So we're moving forward. The information session will be January 12th, as noted. The applications are due the first week of February, and then the lottery would be the second week of February. So all that's moving forward. We're also moving forward with construction on the first of those 5 buildings. If people are out at the site, you'll see that the first building at 47 Beachgrass Road is actually virtually complete. I think we're expecting a CO on that building before the end of the year, and full speed ahead. So that's the marketing information. Please distribute or make anybody available at all. If it's the easiest thing for people, you can just suggest they go down to our leasing office. And Erin Brady, who's our leasing and property management director down there, who many of you know, is there during the day. She's very well versed, in addition to our consultant, to helping people through the process, try and make it as easy as possible on everyone. So full speed ahead on that. And as always, thank you, Mr. Chair and board members, for your support, for your leadership, and we continue to move forward here. So that was it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Dave. Haley, could you distribute those materials to Florencia and ask her to push those out via the town's social media channel?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have comment for today?
So I'm trying to raise my.
Gotcha. Billy, congratulations on the technical feat there.
Thank you. I had a question. I don't know if it's through you or to any of you or to Dave on that flyer that was just up. Why was there no, as I'm saying this, I'm feeling dumber, but why is there no 100% median income labeled on there? In other words, I think it jumps from 80 to 110.
Billy, I don't have the answer to that. I'll come to Brooke. Brooke?
If I remember correctly, Dave had indicated to us that when they looked at the people on their waiting list, they had a tranche of people who incomes put them right over the 100% AMI limit. And they had a fairly large group of people that fell slightly above. And so they chose to price this at 110 to capture that area of the market and not to exclude a bunch of people who need housing who were just above the 100%. No.
Understood. I didn't realize, I didn't know if that's just the way these lists read, that's all.
Thanks, Bill. I'm
I'm
gonna
good,
give,
thank you.
I'm gonna give Tucker a second. He has a comment.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would add that the 100% units were included in the prior phase in the wildflower acceleration. So what Dave just showed on the screen is for the next phase, Violet Place.
Great. Thank you, everyone. All right, I'll give it one. Go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted to make it clear that I wasn't implying anything. I was just curious because I saw it missing.
No, it's an interesting question, and the answer is even better, that it's providing an opportunity to a greater range of people, which is great. So I think the answer from the question comes along well received, for me at least. With that, I don't know that we have any more public comment. Give it 2 seconds for a wave of a hand. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 5, rental incentive Aspen skiing discussion. So this comes back to Mary. Mary, you don't need to speak, or you're welcome to speak. But Mary had sent along an email of an article where there are efforts in Aspen to get seasonal, to have anyone offer rooms for rent or various incentives for more housing opportunities. The article specifically was how to, like, I guess, basically get a ski pass by offering up a housing opportunity to somebody in the community. And not dissimilar to her comment in public comment, what are other resources we can use as a community that has, you know, particular needs, like the ferry or something else that we could incentivize in another way. Some aspects become tricky when they're not it's not a municipal business or something, but maybe, you know, this is an opportunity for us to explore other incentives that exist in our community. So I asked for it to get put on the agenda. So if anybody had a comment, I think it's something that over time we can develop and flesh out a little bit more. But I appreciate the participation. So with that, I will move on to our next item, which is item 6. It's a closing cost assistance program application at 1 Astor Court. Haley, can I throw to you on this, on the application? You went.
Oh, yeah, I just went the other way. Yeah, sorry. Yes, so this is a closing cost assistance program application. It's, I believe, an 80% AMI, and it's pretty standard.
Paperwork's complete.
Yeah,
have
paperwork's
everything.
complete. They have put, it's a fully complete application. The monitoring agent has approved them. They've gone through the Housing Nantucket, first home buyers education course, things of that nature. And it looked pretty standard.
Great. Any members of the trust have questions or comments? Penny?
Yeah, I just have, it's a really minor question, but it says household members who will occupy the home. It says 3, but there are only 2 people listed. I don't know if that's relevant or not.
I can follow up on that. My guess is that, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the page here, that they put the name on the application. It's probably a child, and that they put the names. Let's see.
Oh, you know what? She
Oh,
forgot.
I
her
see
son.
it.
Yeah, it's
Daughter.
the
She
2
didn't put
children.
herself in. Yeah, she didn't
never
put
mind.
herself in.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's valid. It should have her name there too. So, but that's what it is, 2 kids.
Any other questions for Haley on the application? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the closing cost assistance payment application for 10 Beaner Quarter Drive. I'm sorry, that's not the address.
1 Astor Court.
Thank you, 1 Astor Court for Ms. Abreu.
Great. Is there a second?
Second. From me.
I do want to note somewhere, Haley, that Brooke did come in to the meeting. Let's see, where did she come in?
I have it at
During-
12:40.
Okay, great, during public comment. So vote by roll call, Meg Bowers,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
I,
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Hey, Mary, I think you're
Oops, I'm
sharing your,
sorry.
no problem. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure you know you're sharing your screen.
Oh, God. I was trying to put it in chat. All right.
Haley, okay, there we go. We will move to item number 7. So there's a program summary notes or comments. I think, Haley, we may carry this on to the next meeting while we do some due diligence. If memory serves me correctly, Dave was kind of fellow board member Dave Iverson. I'm sorry, I was going to call him Dave Arminity, but that's not right. It was looking to get a kind of a summary of all past applications, dollar volume awarded, monies returned, etc. So that's a compiling effort, and we'll come back the first of the year, get an update on that. Penny.
yeah, just as sort of a follow-up to the previous thing. When we are circulating people's applications, I don't think their social security information and stuff that's sensitive should be circulating in our packets. So can that get redacted or not included or something?
I'm going to kick to Vicky real quick. You giving a head shake in agreement, Vicky? Yes, redact
Yes,
that?
I would highly recommend that that information be redacted
Okay.
before circulating it.
That should be, yeah, I apologize. That went to the board only, and usually I take out the W-9, and that was my mistake, but it did not go to the public.
Okay, good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. So I'll close item 7 for the future summary. If anyone has any requests for information related to that they're looking for in particular, please email over to Haley prior to the next meeting so it can be included in the summary to come out. The next item is item 8. Sorry, I had to count out the Roman numerals there, forgive me. The recent request to DHCD for certification on the HPP. Tucker, are you up to this presentation? I know you're not feeling well.
It's going to be short and sweet, but thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm for the board that through the trust's effort, a lot of effort on behalf of Richmond Development Group, Town Council, DHCD, others, and in addition, Nantucket Property Owner LLC, we recently submitted 50 units, mostly from the Violet Place acceleration we just were talking about, in addition to 2 single-family homes within the Sandpiper 2 development, which Nantucket Property Owner LLC is developing toward our new period of certification under our 2021 housing production plan. So that is all up with DHCD. We think that everything is in order there. I think there's 1 or 2 things that they're following up on. They've been a little bit short-staffed, much like a lot of places these days, but we think we're in good order. So I just wanted to let the board know, and if there are any questions, happy to answer those.
Tucker, I have a question. The date that the safe harbor would run, can you give me start? And it would be 2 years from that start date?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We anticipate it running from December 12th, which is the last date of building permit issuance for the most recent units that are part of this certification request for a period of 2 years. So it'd be till December 11th of 2024, if DHCD finds everything in order.
And just as a follow-up, so this is a continuation of how many years of safe harbor we've been maintaining? I'm just saying this for public education.
We entered into our first period in 2019. So we've been in the summer of 2019. So we've been in 3.5 years. So this would increase it to 5.5.
Great, thank you. And with future projects potentially lined up for a continuation of that, so we're able to reach our 490 or otherwise created number.
Yeah, if everything happened that is in the pipeline right now, we would be at our 10% requirement come 3 years from now, let's say, depending on the pace of some of these projects. But the one wild card is that next spring, we anticipate the new 10% requirement number from DHCD. And it's a little difficult to look in the crystal ball about exactly what's going to happen. It could go up, it could go down, depending on the 2020 census and what that shows.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Tucker. Any other members' questions for Tucker? Kudos to all parties involved, Dave Arminetti, Town Council, Tucker, everybody's worked on this. It's exciting to know that as a community we'll maintain the safe harbor, but more importantly, there's a fast track to putting people in those units and households. So thanks again. With that, we'll close item 8. We'll move to 9. Conditions on additional funding for 31 Fairgrounds discussion and action. So I was not in attendance at the last meeting, but I understand we are moving forward on the additional funding. Vicky, I'd like to, I think, come to you to start the conversation related to terms and conditions on the, is it the note or the mortgage?
No.
Thank you.
So at the last meeting, if you recall, Housing Nantucket came with a request for $1.76 million of additional funding. And you voted and approved that you would authorize a grant of $1 million and then authorize a loan of $761.3 million. So with the idea that, first of all, the amortization would be from years 51 to 57, as was the case with the former request for funding. And then also you had determined that it would be on the so-called same terms as the original request, and then based upon certain conditions and performance standards, which at the last meeting, we really didn't discuss at all. So now that we're trying to prepare a commitment letter to be delivered to Housing Nantucket, as well as the documents so that we can get approval by the select board to do this additional funding as is required, we need to come up with some conditions or terms that would govern perhaps whether this additional loan would be able to become a grant or the terms of it changed. And so I reviewed what I thought would be fairly, they're pretty simple standards that I would certainly expect that the developer would comply with, such as making sure, obviously, that they're not in default of any of the loans or their payments for any of the loans, that they keep, I apologize for my dog, that they keep the project in good condition, that it's fully rented, that it complies with any DHCD requirements for affordable housing. So these are all pretty clear conditions that I would think I would expect the developer to certainly satisfy before we would consider forgiving the loan and making it fully a grant. But I'm opening this up to discussion from all of you as to if there are any other conditions that you think are important to be considered that they should be complying with. And the other term is the interest rate. And whether we're going to be charging the same interest rate as we had charged would be charging in the prior transaction or not. So those are the two things that we need to discuss before we can prepare a commitment letter and the loan documents for this funding, additional funding.
Vicki, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the term of this loan is 7 years. It amortizes it starts in year 51. If we're discussing an interest rate, are we carrying interest between year 1 and year 50? Or is it only during the 7 years?
Well, that's part of the discussion, I think.
Okay.
That you need to determine. I mean, yeah, that is something that you need to think about and how you want to do that.
And then other note that I want to put into discussion is any time the property is refinanced, what position the loan would hold or carry or be paid off, or transfer of ownership on the property.
So the way these documents, and I would do it similarly to what the documents are presently done. I mean, we're not in first position. There is, usually a loan ahead of us. And so if there is a first mortgage, we're going to be having to be in the subordinate position. And so they would have to come to us, obviously. So I would ask for the same terms that we have done in the prior transactions.
Penny, go ahead.
Yeah, just through you, Brian, to Vicki, can you just tell us again what the interest rate was on the first?
Oh, you would ask me that.
I'm so sorry, and I should know this. Well, while you're figuring that out, another question I would have would be, I just want to point out to everybody, this is way out in the future, and I want to be careful that there's not some unintended consequence that we're not thinking of just because we're not going to be here then. Does that make sense? Vicki, have you had experience with things this far into the future?
So I can honestly say I have not. Most of the transactions for funding for these type of loans are usually 50, they're usually 50-year mortgages or less. So, I mean, we do a lot of 99-year ground leases and things like that go well into the future. And so considerations need to be made for how we would deal with them when we're not here. Most of the, I think what you may want to do and consider is for obviously anything that's going to be affected in the long run when we're no longer here is going to require either the select board approval or the trust approval if there are going to be significant changes to or any changes to the terms of this loan.
And also just my last comment is we need to get going on this because I don't want to get in a position where funding is held up because we're not moving on this.
Understood, Penny. Brooke, to you and then to Tucker.
Actually, let's hear from Tucker first because I think he has an answer for some of the questions.
I don't know if I have an answer. I just wanted to clarify one thing that that Vicki said, and I apologize if I'm not hearing things correctly these days. But we are the senior lender. Like we are the only lender. So no one, like anything has to come to us.
Right.
On this.
You're correct.
Yeah.
To you, Brooke.
So I seem to remember that the interest rate was 0.5%, but that I could be open to being corrected on that. To me, the reason I proposed or thought we should end up with splitting this between a grant and a loan was that the future is a far away time, and that having a loan component with some incentive for forgiveness gives a degree of control over the long-term future of the project at the 50-year mark to the municipal authorities, to ensure that whatever's going on 50 years from now, it matches whatever the needs are of the community at that time. So it's sort of just it's a bit of a control mechanism is how I view it. So in terms of an interest rate, this is money that's gone. No matter what interest rate we charge, if we're not accruing it for 50 years, we've basically made this a grant. Anyway, from a financial point of view, it's really just a mechanism of leverage of sorts over this, what happens to this development down the road when it's needing major maintenance, when it's needing other things, that there's ability for the municipality to check in on what's going on there. Because it will be owned at some point outright by Housing Nantucket or an entity that replaces it potentially down the road. So that's what I thought about it. So it's really, I mean, if it matched the 0.5%, I'd be fine. Married into one exactly the same loan agreement for the part we authorized the first time around when we addressed the rising cost of construction.
Any thoughts on, any other thoughts on the 0.5% commentary? I got thumbs up from 1, thumbs up from 2. Okay, so I guess we can come back to that in a little bit. I keep thinking about, to your point, Brooke, 50 years is a long time. We're going to hold a note on this property. This is going to be combined with the last cost. I'm not sure if I'm going to have the number right, but is it like $1.8 million? So the property owner is going to have a lot of equity at the time the property is going to need improvements, right? Call it 30, 40 years from now. What, Vicky, do we, if we're holding first position, how do we want to handle this note if there's, you know, a line of equity or a refinance to be able to take some of the equity to put improvements back into the property? You know, do we need to, I don't know how that's handled. Brooke, I'll come to you and then back to Vicky.
Yeah.
So I would say having a loan agreement that puts us in first position gives us, they have to come to us to borrow for improvements to pull the equity out of the project. So it gives the municipality a voice in that.
Well, I guess my question
Exercise.
is, my question, Brooke, is, are you saying that you want to be the bank, or why not then go to a different bank and then take our position away? Like that's what I'm asking you, right? Because there's a world that they, like, are we putting in a prepayment penalty clause? So, you know, a world in 25 years from now, they go and refinance the property to put new roofs on and then prepay. I'm just trying to think, to Penny's point, 50 years from now is a long time. If there's a new owner, do we want to allow that in the note, or is there a cost? Or do you want only the community to be the bank on the project? Which is, I think, where you were going.
No, it's not where I was going. Where I was going was, we just get invited to the table to have that conversation between years 50 and 57.
Okay,
Because we have this outstanding loan.
right.
If the cash flow of the project allows them to pay this off without asking for forgiveness, well, good on them.
Vicky, floor is yours.
So what usually, you know, so say we're in year I mean, a lot of these projects need, you know, maintenance and rehab work 20 years from now. Okay. So if they don't have the funding themselves to be able to do that, and they're going to go and get a loan from another entity, that's when you need to think about how you want to maintain your position. Do you want them to just have that loan rolled into one plus paying us off and just, make a deal with us? Or do you want, no bank is going to sit behind us probably.
That's what I was kind of getting at, Brooke. The problem becomes when they need money 30 years from now, there's nowhere to get it. And so if we haven't got to the date we're into the 51 to 57 years, how do we want to manage that? Yes, there hopefully is cash flow at the property. So I think these are some of the things we need to contemplate now to give them the ability to do that. I don't know
So-
that we need to approve it, but it needs to be contemplated. Go ahead, Brooke.
So my argument is that because they have an outstanding obligation to the municipality, that the municipality then has the option, if the finances are such that they need to borrow money and a bank won't take a second position, the municipality can say, we'll take a second position because it's in the interest of the community to do so. But I would leave it as flexible as possible for the leaders of our community at the time to come to the table and do whatever they think is necessary to keep this project viable and working toward the community's best interest. So I don't want to try to anticipate too much what might be, but my guess is that by holding this debt, it forces the owners to talk to the municipality regardless of how well they're doing or not well they're doing or what their future plans are. It keeps our investment and interest in the project alive for a longer period of time. We could choose to walk away from the debt if it would if hanging on to it at that time jeopardizes their ability, right? Or our future select board could.
Vicky, I'm going to come to you. I understand the mindset. I just don't know how we transfer that to legalese.
So I think that what we would want to do is have a provision in this that's basically going to say that any refinancing, sale, transfer of interest is going to require the town's prior written consent. And therefore, what that enables us to do is to be able to, as you say, sit at the table with them and just work things out. And if, we're not satisfied, then we're not going to certainly have to approve it. And then we would have to figure out, how else to keep this project going and come up with additional funding. The other thing to keep in mind is we're always holding, there's always an affordable housing restriction on this property. So the town always has that. This property just cannot go and be converted into another use or a single, So just, and any foreclosure by any other party also enables the affordable housing restriction to remain in effect. So I think just giving us the opportunity to be able to give that prior written approval, and we would have, whether it's refinance or, sale or lease or transfer, whatever it is, we would have the ability to give it that.
Can I take it so far as rather than just an approval opportunity, an option to meet at same terms? Approval or option? So then the trust has the ability to buy the project back. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that? Because approval doesn't give us the opportunity to take the deal. Yeah, I see no continued discussion on that. Brooke?
Well, is that baked into the deed restriction or not? I mean, if they were looking to sell the property to someone else, it requires our approval, municipal approval. If they, I mean, basically they, yeah, I don't know, Tucker?
I mean, I just was gonna say, like, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but the kind of situation you're talking about there is 30 years down the road, they come and say, we need to do some work and we need you to get behind someone else in
Right,
order.
we're gonna go to this bank, we're gonna borrow $10 million, we're gonna give them 7% because that's the current rate.
Right,
And we
And-
need you to take second position. I'd like
Right,
the
and
ability to be able to give them the $10 million at the 7% and own the loan.
oh, is that what, the option is to provide the loan or to
No,
take
the
over
option is to meet the terms of whatever the financial instrument they're working with, if the future board in 50 years wanted to. The conversation started with, we would just approve whatever the situation is. I want to approve or have the ability to meet it and match it.
it's provide the funding or own the project?
It could be either,
Yeah.
right? Like, so the two scenarios are the one you said, right? You refinance the property, you take cash back to do whatever improvements you're gonna do. And you go to a commercial lender and you do that at a rate that a commercial lender is providing. If we as the town, if that was a favorable financial transaction, we might want to provide that funding. Versus just approve the funding and take second position behind it. So that we would need approval and an option. The other scenario would be if the property was purchased by someone and our note still existed and existed in first position, we would have to approve to take position if that new person got any financing. So my point is that we may want to take the deal at that point in the future as well. Because if there's a new owner, the position of our financing, yes, it would be approval to transfer it to them at the time, and we could discuss as a community in 40 years, whoever's on the board, or we could say, oh, we figured out housing on Nantucket, we have a cash surplus. Why don't we buy the project? Because it has great cash flow, it's financially viable, it's in great condition.
Okay, I thought that you might be getting at the situation where we do not want to get behind another lender for $10 million. We aren't sure why the 10 million is actually required, and that we think that maybe there should be a different view of things. So
No,
yeah.
that still exists. It's approval or the option, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're like, yeah, this is a great idea, we should do this. And like, wait, that bank's getting really favorable terms. Why don't we do it? We have the money, like. Go ahead, Brooke.
But doesn't our authority, or the requirement that we approve whatever they do, basically put them in a position of, if we say, we want to loan you the money, we're not going to approve you borrowing it from someone else. We in essence have that authority.
No, we don't have the authority. We have the authority to say no, but then we have to negotiate our own terms. Doesn't mean that we're getting the terms that are on the table.
I don't know, it feels too detailed. But
There any other comments from members of the board? Okay. Vicky or Tucker?
I would just say that, I mean, Brian, you take a correct position in saying that if that's what everyone wants, approves of that idea, that you would need to have either the approval or the right to exercise an option to match the financing terms, something like that. I mean, it's certainly doable, but I think you're right. You would want to give trust the option to be able to do that. Otherwise, I think it's just a simple yes or no to consent to a sale, refinance, whatever.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Then I'm good with that. Let's write it that way.
Okay, so we've covered 0.5% so far. We've covered, I guess, transfer or approval. Vicky, what other things do we need to cover on this? Like you mentioned some standards.
Right, some
Condition-
conditions as to whether we would forgive the loan when we get, to year 50, 57. Otherwise, I would probably put together a draft for you to take a look at for the terms, which would be an amendment to the current documents.
Do any of the existing documents provide for milestone times for reports on the property and project and occupancy right now? Because if they don't, then we could get to year 51 before we're reviewing good condition. Like, should there be something like every 2 years or 5 years or?
Well, there were conditions as far as, they need to complete the project within a certain period of time. I'd have to pull the documents, to be honest. I haven't looked at them in a little bit of time, but I can certainly do that. But they do have to complete the project within a certain period of time and then, try to occupy it as, within X period of time. Also, complying with DHCD requirements. They have a lot of reporting requirements on their own, quite frankly. So, which is why I said, they need to be current with all of their requirements with DHCD.
So do we, 50 years is a long time. Do we want to have, a summary report every 5 years of their DHCD? What requirement acceptance or whatever, or compliance?
I think that we get a copy of that anyway.
Okay.
But I can certainly make sure that that's an additional condition.
Yes, Brooke.
I'm worried about timing. We are now at the point where the previously allocated funds have been spent. And these funds that dip into this grant and loan funding stream are needed to keep the project moving forward. So I don't think we can kick this down the road another month. I think we're out of time on this, and I don't want to rush it through. However, I don't want to hold up funding for the project.
Well, I don't see, we're creating solutions right now. Vicky, go ahead.
Well, so we have to bear in mind that we need to go back to the select board to get their approval. This additional funding was not approved by them. So initially. So,
And are you able to finish the note in a manner that we can get it to the select board for their approval?
well, so we are now at December 21st. They will probably, I'd have to check and see when their next executive session meeting is, which I assume would be, Brooke, maybe
January 5th.
Yeah, the first week. So I would have to have things ready very quickly. And I mean, it's doable. I will get it done for you. The one thing is, aren't you going to want to look at it yourselves? And so do you
We can
want a
have-
meeting to do that for you before I have it go to the select board?
Let me come to Penny. Penny?
Yeah, just that we can certainly have a special meeting by Zoom if we need to review that.
Okay, so do you have, I can talk to Libby or Tucker, you could talk to Libby to see that we can put this on. I don't know what her executive session schedule looks like. So we can certainly try to do that. And then I need to, I can get there. It's not that complicated for, well, it is complicated, but I can certainly, I can certainly get the documents done. I need a chance for you to look at them. And then Housing Nantucket has their counsel, Stephen Cohen, who I don't know whether he's going to be looking at them or want to look at them. So
I think the soonest you can give Haley 48-hour notice so she can post a special meeting, we'll review them. I think.
are you guys around next week? Let me ask you that.
I think we'll make the point to get a quorum to be around for next week. I got three thumbs up in myself, so that's
Okay,
that's
all right,
definitely
so
a
I'm
quorum.
around. So,
Okay,
all right, so I can make, I will make this happen for you guys, okay? So I can get the documents to you beforehand. You can take a look at them, then we can meet, tell me what you think of them, and then we need to get them to a select board meeting. And Tucker, if you can see how quickly we can get on an agenda, if we can get on for the 5th.
okay, great. Now, Brooke, you raised your hand in that kind of discussion. Did you have something you were holding?
Well, I was going to suggest that we just put something on the calendar now.
Okay,
We can get posted, and then we're not scrambling. So, you know, and through you, Mr. Chair, Vicky, like the latter part of next week.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's see. Monday is a holiday. How about Thursday? Does Thursday work? Anytime on Thursday? I'm pretty open.
I can make Thursday work. The second half of the day for me personally will be a challenge.
Okay, morning.
So-
Any-
Let's do morning.
Between 10 and 1 o'clock. Okay, we're getting thumbs up all around.
Yeah.
How's 10 a.m.?
Perfect.
10 a.m.
Great.
sounds great. Okay, so
All
I
right.
will try to get you documents then.
I think we may have one or two more items just to get full clarity on. Tucker, what did you want to ask?
Oh,
I just was gonna, so Vicky, this has to be an executive session item for the select board, is that right?
Well, we're not really, I mean, it could be in an open meeting, I suppose.
Well, I mean, if we are working with Housing Nantucket and Steve Cohen to arrive at something that we feel good about, it's just a question of whether it would be an executive session or open session item for the select board.
So I think that it probably should be an executive session because I'm not sure that we are going to be able by next week. I mean, if I have these documents for all of you to take a look at, I don't think we're in a position to share them really with Housing Nantucket and Steve Cohen yet, unless, I mean, I could put them out there. I'm not sure how quickly we're going to get a response either from them.
Penny?
I don't
Penny,
want to be, I think we take it to the select board as quickly as we can. And keep this moving along.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to do that, just because I'm afraid that if we hold it and don't send it to the select board and we hold it to try to work things out with Housing Nantucket and Steve Cohen, that could take a little bit of time. And then we lose our opportunity to get to the board.
Okay, great. So we'll meet next Thursday and then we'll get it to the board immediately thereafter.
So Tucker, will you reach out to Libby and see if we can get on that agenda for the 5th? Okay.
Okay, so the only, go ahead, Penny.
I just, I think I'd like to ask on 31 Fairgrounds that the construction committee set up a meeting. Not before Christmas, obviously.
Okay, great. So on that committee, you have other members that aren't here, right? Is everybody
Billy and Steve, Tucker, and myself, I think.
Okay. So I request that you set up an email meeting as fast as possible there.
After Christmas.
Yeah, you get 3 of the 4 here that are probably in agreement.
Okay. Tucker,
Um,
Tucker, you can help set that up.
thumbs up, he'll set it up. Vicky?
And so one other thing, I think what I will do is I will start preparing these documents. I will reach out to Steve Cohen and to Ann, just to let them know that we are working on getting these documents going, and we'll need to take them to the select board, and
Great.
and I'll get them the documents as soon as they're ready. Then it puts the pressure on them too, because if we've all agreed and they slow the whole process down, well, you know, it's on them.
Okay, great. Are there any other items or conditions that you want to review with us for conversation for the document?
I don't think so at this time. I can certainly reach out to you if I need to.
Okay, great. Let me go back to one. So I think with that, we've kind of worked through this. Any others, give the board one more opportunity. Any members, questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Sorry, sorry. I
Sorry,
didn't
Penny.
know. I didn't know if Ann or Billy had something they wanted to
Okay,
discuss or share.
Thank you. Billy? Billy's got his hand up. You're on mute, Bill, if you're trying to talk. There you go.
Yeah, it kept clicking back, telling me to shut up, apparently. I don't know if this is part of the matter that you were just discussing or not, but I had been told in an earlier conversation with Mr. Hollister that there was cash on hand at the trust that could augment what Housing Nantucket has available that would, I think, patch through this period from now until whenever the select board meets. Can that be transferred, or is there any such thing, or no? I was told there was $600,000 and change available.
Bill, so I'm gonna come to Vicky on that, on the, I guess, the legal technicality of distribution. Vicky, I saw you shaking your head. So.
Well, so any funding, I mean, I'm not aware of what funds Steve Hollister is referring to, quite frankly, but any funds that are available in the trust account, that needs to be you know, a warrant needs to be issued to the select board to be able to release funds. And that goes through the finance director. It's not just like a bank account that we can go and sign a check and hand it over. So there has to be, you know, actual approval from the select board.
So, Vicky, just to be clear on that, as far as timing on that process, what you're talking about is the warrant's generally a 2-week notice period. Put a select board meeting in front of that, you're probably talking 21 days as far as process. Now the question becomes availability or opportunity for release.
I would like to clear something up, if I may. Pardon me for just a moment. Maybe this has already been put in action. If so, I'm completely unaware of it, and it's my bad for bringing it up. Maybe I'm, but I think I had this conversation with Steve last week, so I don't know where things stand, but I felt the need to bring it up, and that's it.
Yeah,
So,
Billy, give us a minute. Let's ferret it out. So we're all. on
no
the same-
problem. Thank you.
We're all on the same page. Tucker, come to you, and then Penny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not aware of a 600 and some $1,000 request that that Steve referenced there. I mean, following the trust approving this additional funding at the November meeting, which Brian and I were not at, we did receive a request in, I guess, a couple of weeks ago now from Housing Nantucket for 2.8 million. And that would put us above the original 6.75 million, which there is underlying documentation for. So in order to release the 2.8 million, I'm 99.999% certain that the finance director will say, we have to have this new loan and grant agreement or amendment in place prior to releasing that 2.8 million. So if I don't know about a different number to that, this is the first that I'm hearing about it.
Penny, coming to
Yeah,
you.
has, through you to Billy, has the 2.8 been billed for yet in its entirety?
That's, excuse me, pardon me. That is what I was just going to weigh in on. I don't know how much of that 2.8, if any, has been released. And perhaps Steve was talking about the delta between whatever was available and the 2.8. I'm not comfortable going any farther with this because I don't want to misrepresent what Steve was saying. And I feel like I'm right on the edge of that. So
Okay, so
it very well be my misunderstanding.
but
Okay.
my understanding through Sally, to everybody through Brian, is that 2.8 was to take this project into the beginning of 2023. Is that I guess that's a question.
I would say that the answer to that would be pretty accurate.
Okay,
The answer is that, yes, if that 2.8 had been paid now to date, we'd be fine through the end of the year. We'd be fine.
Okay.
We'd be fine beyond that. We'd be
So-
fine into January at some point.
for Brian, to you, Billy, are there outstanding invoices that you've billed for and not been paid for?
There is an invoice on the table right now for $775,000, which is payment of one of the structures that is not yet set. As it stands right now, we have, so buildings 1, 2, 3, and 8 have been set. You've probably all seen them. We have the foundations in for buildings 4 and 5. There are 2 remaining foundations to be excavated. We've kind of run up against a little bit of a quandary in terms of where to place things. So in addition to some other matters, so we're stopped with the excavation process right now. We have buildings, again, 1, 2, 3, and 8 are done and set. We have 4 and 5 complete and on site. In other words, all of the boxes, all of the components necessary. We have building 6 complete on site with the exception of 1 box, which is sitting in our lot over in Hyannis. And that box is not coming over until houses 4 and 5 are set. And we bring that box over and we take a stack of trailers, 5 trailers off at a time. So we're not wasting Steamship Authority round trips. Building 7, the last building, is complete except for 2 boxes that are still in Maine. And I feel not obliged to pay for any of that house. And in fact, we have not yet been billed for that last house until we have in hand all of the boxes. I do feel an obligation to pay for buildings 4, 5, pardon me, 4, 5, and 6 as soon as we can, because we have the buildings. We have been built. I'd like to pay.
Go ahead, Penny.
Just to
Thank
be
you, Billy.
clear, all the barging is now done and 7 is gonna come by truck, right?
That's correct. We will be receiving no new barges.
Okay.
We're done barging. We're done with the steamship authority other than regular truck transportation.
Yahoo, thank you.
Thank you for the thorough update. To be perfectly honest, I'm a little circular on the beginning part of the conversation. I am going to take Billy where he left it and kind of put a pause on it because he feels like he's at an edge on the question of in midterm disbursement. But at this point, the trust has to work its way through the loan agreement and the select board approval for any further disbursement. I believe that's where we're at. And then, and I'll see, I'll come to you in 1 second. And we're gonna have a special meeting next week with Vicky, with the loan agreement to pass on to the select board. Anne?
Thank you. I really appreciate how everyone is trying to keep the project moving because this change order here is basically a true up from what the initial cost was for the modular boxes. And then once they actually were delivered because of the materials cost increases and inflation and whatnot, that's why, that's the bulk of what we were coming to you for this change order. So of the 2 point, what was that number? We just.
2.8.
2.8, thank you. Of that 2.885 that we just invoiced you for, 1.858 is attributed to change orders. And then the balance is already approved. And as we talked about before, this keeps the project because we're projecting where the project's going to be over the next 2 months because of the funding timeline with finance and whatnot. That's what has already been approved is that other amount. So I don't know if it's possible to split them into 2 invoices. We can do that if that would help you with your progress and your process, to just split it into a change order invoice and then what's already been approved invoice, just to expedite that since you wouldn't have gotten your select board approval for the change order just yet.
So I think either way, it's in a revised loan and grant agreement document. So I think it needs, no matter what the amount of money, am I correct on that, Vicky? Because once we're over the 750, any
We're
dollar.
not.
over that.
I'm sorry, I don't think that we are actually over that amount.
Oh, okay.
So how much would you get that would allow you to stay under that 6.875, Andrew? And
Well, I need to get back to you, but I think so so far, according to our records, we've received 6.137.
Okay, so that's where the mysterious 600 conversation concept is coming.
Okay, there you go. Nice.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Tucker, if you would reach out to the finance department and see what they're tracking on that number. And I think that's where this conversation kind of leads us to. Vicky?
so then, if in fact that's true, we still need to have a warrant from the select board to issue any further funds.
Right, so any delta under the 6,750, we can
Right.
get a warrant, get the money out in theory in 21 days. Or thereabouts, whatever the next warrant posting time is. And knowing that, and then we'll continue to work on the grant agreement.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Can I just ask one other question, Ann? And that is, do you anticipate that this is the last change order, the last increase that you're going to ask for from the trust?
I'm going to defer to Billy on that.
So you have no changes to the project, it just potentially costs
That's right.
on the building materials, okay.
The first change was an expansion of scope. Was
Right.
additional square footage significantly.
That's why I wanted to clarify that there are no intended changes of scope to the project. Anything additionally could be inflationary or labor. And so now you're
That's right.
asking that question of Mr. Cassidy.
Right.
Billy?
My answer in a global form, and I'm saying this, I guess, kind of defensively. Every time there's a delay in any type of project, time is money. We've all heard that, and I don't mean to sound cynical, but when we have to stop because cash flow is interrupted, it tends to affect the bottom line at the end of the day. That's my experience.
Thank you, Billy. So I think the answer, Vicky, is if there's unforeseen circumstances, it's hard for a yes, no answer.
Okay.
Realistically, I
Yeah.
think that's what I'm saying, but there's no change in the scope of the project.
Yeah.
Penny?
Yeah, I just want to point out that the closer we get to the end of this, the more predictable things should start to get also.
Right. And based on that summary, it sounds like we're pretty darn close.
We should be closer.
Right. Fair. Okay, so Ann's gonna send us her notes on where her accounting, where she's at. Tucker, you'll go to the finance department where she's at. If there's any continued discussion on these items, we can have them next Thursday. We're going to review the grant agreement with the things we talked about, and come back and get on the select board agenda. Anything more? Go ahead, Ann.
Well, just with regards to that action item, for me, that has been included in our request, in our last request. That chart, the ledger, shows how much we've already been received and which aspects are part of the change order. So are you saying you would like me to split those two into two invoices, one a change order invoice and one a non-change order invoice?
Go ahead, Tucker.
So it's kind of new news today, like that we're looking for a partial payment potentially. So I'm going to have to ask the finance director how he would view a partial payment, and we may want to have a separate request. So I can circle back to you on that. And the second question I'm just going to ask Haley, just so we're all looking at the same thing, but Haley, what is the next warrant date on which something could actually get on the agenda?
The next warrant date is the 5th, but that wouldn't cover, there's no agreements done yet here. So unless there was a separate invoice or there was an update from finance, the next one after that is the 17th of, I'm sorry, the 18th of January.
So if we come back to you, Ann, for a partial payment, we're gonna need a response on a partial payment before the 5th to get it on that warrant.
Yeah, and I would have to submit everything to finance no later than the 29th of December for it to go through on the 5th.
So that's a week from this Thursday. Everybody clear on the dates and timing? Go ahead, Ann.
I'm out of the office next week, so if there's something that needs to get done. I
Can you
need to
work
focus.
remotely?
No, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm like in the woods.
All right, so we have 3 days to get back to you and get it done by Friday.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. I don't believe we have an action item at this, and we're carrying to the next meeting for Vicky's report. So does anybody have any continued comment, thoughts on the note, the mortgage, the conditions? Okay, so with that. Okay, Vicky, I'm gonna come to you, and then I see a member.
Yeah.
Member of the public.
While Ann is still with us, I just want to confirm with you, Ann, that we're going to need to go back to you and Steve Cohen for approval of these documents. Is Steve still representing? I just want to make sure he's still representing Housing Nantucket, or?
I mean, we haven't talked for a while, so I know he takes off that last week too. I don't know what his vacation schedule is.
Could you find out for us and come back Friday, before Friday, before you go away, what his schedule is?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be helpful, because
Great.
if I'm going to try to get these ready to go to the select board, I just want to know that he'll be ready to look at them after I get approval from the select board.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Before I close the item, I have Jerome Vigil.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I applaud your oversight procedures. And I also applaud the fact that you have keep this loan, lean towards the loan agreement for the future as opposed to a grant, because that puts the onus on whoever the owner is. And, you know, this is good because we're all going to be dead in 50 years. So I think the oversight is an important thing in keeping construction costs. And I realize the fact that, you know, with COVID and supply chain issues, it's been a big problem for all of us. And I just wanted to say that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vigil. Appreciate that. Mr. Cassidy, I see your hand back up.
Through you, just for a last point, I would like to say that I finally happily agree with Jerry Vigil. And Jerry, I hope that we haven't been too much of a bother next door. And I think you will really like the outcome. It's not an open field, but in any event. And then finally, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You too.
As long as the fence goes up, I'm happy with it. And happy holiday to everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Okay, so we will continue to, let's see. Item 12, recommendation select board funding F year 2024. I will come to Brooke. Oh, wait, Penny, you're waving at me.
I think we skipped over 10 and 11.
Did I?
Yeah, wishful thinking.
Thank you, Penny. Okay. RFP timelines, 145, 147 Orange, 12 Bartlett, and 7 Amelia. Vicky, I am going to come to you on this.
So Tucker and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we realized that we've been trying to fit these RFPs into our very busy schedules and not giving them their full due. And so we were thinking that we would have you all take a look at the drafts that Haley has produced for these RFPs and perhaps get us any comments that you have, and then have them ready for a meeting where they can be given their full consideration rather than trying to squeeze them into you know, a very short time period. And we know the importance of these, so we really want to try to get them reviewed, approved, and getting them ready for January, the end of January, mid to end of January. So
I don't know that it's possible to only have a meeting with one item, but is there a suggestion, kind of what I'm hearing, of having a special meeting for the trust related to these 3 RFPs towards the end of January? Is that, or am I making that up? Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think what Vicky and I had discussed was, as she outlined, that we would recirculate the present drafts of the RFPs for further comment from the board, the individual board members, which we would like to receive by January 2nd, or just after the new year, to the extent that people may have a down moment in these next couple of weeks. The plan then is to have them, ready for review and hopefully subsequent issuance following the planned regular meeting in January. So I would suggest that we keep that plan, and that if we need a special meeting to accommodate other issues, that we plan for that afterward, but that we keep the RFPs on this track.
Okay, so that will be a January 24th meeting. What do we do, the fourth Tuesday?
No, the January meeting is
Third Tuesday?
the 15th, I believe.
The 17th.
6th.
I'm looking at my calendar, right? January
17th.
2023, the 17th.
17th.
Okay, great. So your date of the 2nd is a little bit ambitious, in my opinion, with the holidays. If I could suggest the end of the day on Thursday, the 5th, for board comments back.
even, we were just sort of trying to get them done, probably reviewed by the first week in January. So I mean, if you want to get them to us by January 5th or
Great.
even the Monday, I mean, just so that I have enough time to take a look at them with Tucker, we can go through them and try to get these in shape for a meeting, which is on the 17th.
Yeah,
So the goal on the 17th would be to approve and publish.
approve them so they could go through the procurement process and be issued a few weeks later. So Vicky and I are planning to proceed with, our work independent of whatever further comments come from the trust. The trust has had a chance to look at this on a couple of different occasions. So we're not necessarily anticipating a lot of comments, but any are welcome. But those can be incorporated midstream, so to speak. So the 5th would be fine, Brian, if we want to use that as a date.
Yeah.
Great. Is that realistic for the members? I think I'm seeing general agreement. Haley, you have a item?
Yeah, just a note on the timeline. I think Tucker, I talked to you about this, but I just don't recall, is that I had a note that Libby wants to see the RFPs before they are voted on and published. And that I don't know where in the timeline it is, but I know, Tucker, you said that like some other offices need to see it, so.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the timeline we just went through would allow Libby that time to review before the trust met on the 17th.
Great.
Okay, great. I'm glad we have a plan there. Looking forward to getting those out. So warrant item number 11, warrant articles regarding serving the 240 AMI discussion, trust documentation, CPC recommendation. So I think Vicky's been working on a warrant article to raise our base or our upper limit up to 240. So Vicky, I'll come to you on that.
So both of these warrant articles we addressed at the last meeting, the home rule petition and the warrant article. So there was only one change that was going to be made with respect to the Declaration of Trust Amendment. That was to describe the median income as being area-wide rather than Nantucket. So I did that. So otherwise, this article is exactly as it was written last time. So it would increase the amount of funding that you would provide up to 240%. So I think that gets you, I think, a lot, a larger target, certainly. And the
Closer to that attainable housing.
Right. And the home rule petition, I believe, so I didn't change that at all. I believe Ken is supposed to be taking that to the CPC for their approval, and we'll see. How they
Brooke is going to be doing that because I haven't had a chance to review it.
Okay.
I haven't, my bad, but I haven't had a chance to look at it or understand how it's going to affect the CPC.
Okay.
Okay, great. So Brooke, I'll come to you.
So I have drafted a document for distribution to the CPC commissioners prior. I've requested to be on their January agenda, and they have agreed to put me on the agenda and have asked for documentation ahead of time. So I'm preparing an explanation of why we are proposing this change to their enabling documents, and then we'll be looking for feedback from them. So, and I did talk about this at last week's select board meeting, that the idea is to have the AMI limits for the use of funds consistent across all of our borrowing authorizations, enabling documents, trust documents, et cetera, so that it's more understandable to the community and increases the flexibility of us patching together funding for projects that we're working on. So, and I will go to the CPC and explain that and hope for positive response from them, but they'll have an opportunity to see it before I get there.
Thank you, Brooke. Ken?
Brooke, what is the process that we have to go through in terms of changing the legislation that restricts us as it currently exists?
It's a home rule petition.
Right.
That's years down the road.
No.
Well, if it's on, the intention is to put it on this year's warrant.
No, I'm just talking about the experience with the legislature in terms of home rule petitions and Nantucket.
So some of them passed without incident, and I have already reached out to Charity Grace to get feedback from our legislators on whether they anticipate any issues with this home rule, and I'll have that feedback before I come to the CPC.
Terrific, thank you.
And
Go ahead, Vicki.
there are other communities that are doing the same thing. So I think it's important to stress with, our legislative aides that, I think Eastham is doing the same thing. And I think that there are a couple of other Cape towns as well that are also doing it. So I think you're seeing a movement afoot to try to do this.
Thank you, Vicki. Penny?
Yeah, I just want to point out, there's no other county on this in the Commonwealth with an average home price of over $4 million.
Not going to say thank you, Penny.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, all
Understood.
of this will be brought to the CPC by way of explaining why this board has proposed and is asking for their support of this initiative that we're starting.
I just need as much time as possible with you before so that I can be fully prepared and get my committee on side.
So, sorry, Ken.
That's okay. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. So this item says action. I don't know that this is necessarily a votable item, but the goal, the goal here is we're gonna ask the select board to bring forth these articles on our behalf. I don't know if we're looking to have a vote on that or not, Brooke.
So I want to be very careful not to make a recommendation on the CPC warrant until we've had that conversation with them. I think it's inappropriate for us to presume that it's okay with them.
Yep, agreed.
And however, I have notified the town manager and the select board of the intention of this board to recommend. So I think we could take action today with regard to the change in our trust declaration of trust. And I think the motion would be to recommend to the select board that a home rule petition as written by town council be included on the annual town meeting warrant.
That was said. Go ahead.
Did we do that already? If we haven't done that already, we should do that.
I was gonna say that was said so eloquently. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So for any further discussion, so we're only looking at the trust documentation article to present to the select board. Seeing no further discussion, I'll vote by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Okay, so we had one member drop off the meeting. She did note in the comments. So the CPC article, Brooke, we look forward to your presentation to Ken and the CPC, and we'll follow up after that meeting. Great. Moving on to item, where am I now? 12, recommendations to select board for funding for FY 2024. I don't know if I lost Tucker on this one. Here he comes. Brooke, I'm going to come to Tucker first.
Please go to Brooke, but I wanted to note that I think an audience member, Laura Silver, had her hand up on the last item.
Oh, I'm sorry, Laura. I'd love to give you an opportunity for public comment there. So before I go ahead.
I just had a request. Thanks so much for noticing my hand. When you get that warrant article drafted for the trust, would you be kind enough to provide that to myself and to Provincetown Select Board so they can take a look at that language as well? It would just be great. It would be great to know what you guys are filing so that we are also, I think the more filings that go in with similar language, if there's warrant articles that are going on, I think we're all trying to look at what everybody else is doing to figure out how to duplicate it.
I'm going to come to Vicky to answer your request.
One thing I wanted to point out is for the declaration of trust for the Affordable Housing Trust, it's a warrant article, not a home rule petition that's going to be filed. Okay, just so you know, but we're happy to, obviously, I'm sure, Brian can have that sent along to you or I can, it's not a problem. I just also want to tell you though, I did follow the home rule petition that I've drafted for the CPC is similar to what has been filed already. So I think I agree with you. I think it's important that we all try for the different communities to try to be as uniform as we can so that when the legislature looks at this, they're not looking at competing ideas and that they can see that, this idea, has value and should be considered. So I wholly agree with you that we should all try to be consistent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Laura, we'll have that sent on.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Rima, on that item, I think I have Rima and Haley looking to chat on this one. Go ahead, Rima.
We did approve the language for the first warrant article, the declaration of trust at item 8 at our last meeting. I just wanted to make a note of that we had already approved that.
Great. Thank you, Rima. And Haley?
Yeah, I just wanted to note in the public packet for anyone else who's looking for it, Laura too, but also anyone else who might be watching, the warrant article as approved, language approved, is in the packet. So yeah, check it out.
Great. Thank you, Haley. Okay, so now I'm really going to wrap that one up and move on to recommendations to select board for funding FY 2024. So Tucker is kicking to Brooke. Brooke, floor is yours.
So the conversation around funding for affordable and attainable housing efforts on Nantucket will revolve this year around a citizen warrant article, which has been resubmitted, that recommends setting aside 2/3 of the room's occupancy tax. Tucker, do you want to interrupt me? Your hands up. Okay. 2/3 of the room's occupancy tax to a stabilization fund for affordable housing. And you may remember this article came up, I think it was 2 years ago. It was Article 38. And it was, Penny, what was it? I saw you shake your head.
Nope.
Okay.
7.
So the mechanism is under the room's occupancy tax, when it was expanded to include short-term rentals, gave municipalities the option to set up a stabilization fund. It is the way that a portion of that revenue is designated, pulled out of the general fund and designated for a special purpose, in this case, affordable housing. The challenge with that is that it is put in the stabilization fund, and then it requires a future town meeting, 2/3 vote at a future town meeting, to pull the money back out to be utilized or spent. So it's a somewhat inflexible form of funding. So at a select board meeting last week, we had a preliminary budget presentation from the finance director for the town of Nantucket, and it is under consideration to bring an article that would be a permanent override for housing, which is, in essence, works as a, so what we've done thus to date is 1-by-1 debt exclusions, which is a way to raise money outside the levy limit and in excess of Proposition 2.5, which limits the growth of our levy limit or our taxing ability to 2.5% increase per year, plus any increase in value that is new construction or improvements, not based on what houses are worth. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So Prop 2.5 limits how much increase in property taxes a municipality can do year over year. And so if a municipality determines that there's a priority they want to fund that is in excess of what's allowed under the levy limit, they have several options. The option we have used for housing to date has been debt exclusion, which is a borrowing authorization. And we have done a bunch of those. There are limitations on how those funds can be used when it's a borrowing versus tax revenue. So a permanent override, and the example of one we have already done was for the ongoing operating expenses of our island home. We voted and approved a $5 million a year override, which basically allows an additional property tax to support $5 million a year of tax revenue to run our island home. So what the finance director has preliminary suggested to the select board is to add another permanent override of $5 million per year to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund on an ongoing basis. So this basically supplies a ongoing revenue stream for our work at $5 million a year in perpetuity. And it is a significant change in funding strategy on part of town administration. And I find it really interesting, exciting. And so I encourage everybody to continue to participate in the conversations at the select board and FinCom level as this proposal makes its way through the budget process that will be presented ultimately at town meeting next spring. This is in essence in line with what Dr. Howard Dickler proposed a number of years ago. And the community wasn't ready for this conversation. And apparently now we are. So I know that the trust has in the past opted not to weigh in on citizen warrant articles and other warrant articles. And I just don't know where it goes from here. I'm describing this on an informational basis and then maybe pose the question on whether the trust wants to discuss the pros and cons of each option. And that's kind of where we're at. Tucker, did I get that?
So, Brooke, thank you very much for the presentation. Thanks as the select board representative. I think it's exciting that there's the potential conversation of a $5 million funding override. I look forward in future conversations and presentations to what we can turn that into through bonding. So that's just a far off in the future question. The way the agenda item was written, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear and we're clear, is that it was request to the select board for funding for FY 2024. So this is coming the other direction. This is a recommendation from the finance for the trust. I want to make sure we don't miss, and we may not be ready in this conversation, but operationally, like if this is a general override, if this doesn't get approved, are we asking for other budget monies that would be included, not as a prop override? Just so I'm clear on operationally we're covering.
Yeah.
The way the article, the way the item's written.
Yeah, so I have asked Libby and Brian for some clarification on a few things, such as will this replace the $2 million a year that is already allocated?
Which is in general funding, which doesn't need an override. And we're using that to fund programs and some operational aspects.
Right, and so my request to them is please don't depend on an override passing to replace our funding this year, and then there's a conversation the following year of does that then take the place of the $2 million, which in essence, while not an official set aside of the rooms tax, because it didn't go into a stabilization fund, in essence, what was available because of the increased revenue from the rooms tax related to short-term rentals. So
I just want to be clear on that. If we take away the 2 million that we are currently budgeted for $5 million override, our net gain is 3 million.
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know whether their intention is to keep the 2 million and have the 5 additive, or whether it's certainly would be risky to do that this year. I don't know what their thinking is. So I've asked for clarification.
Okay, great. So in order of the way the hands went up, Tucker, I'm going to come to you.
I'll let Penny go first.
Okay, Penny. Always the gentleman.
Thank you. I don't think now is really the time at this point in the meeting to get too heavily into the merits of one proposal versus the other. But I do think it's important to point out who would be paying under what the proposal Brooke just brought forward. The taxpayers would be paying if it even passed at the ballot. Okay, so this would require town meeting approval followed by the ballot. When the room occupancy tax was expanded in 2019 to include vacation rentals, it was estimated last year that it would generate $7.5 million. It generated in excess of 13 million. 2/3 of that would be 8.6 million, which would go a lot farther in leveraging than 5 million. Remembering also that $5 million would be worth less every year. So those are a couple of points I wanted to make. I also, on the room occupancy tax, that's paid by visitors. And I think there's a certain elegance to that as, to use an overused word, sustainable solution, similar to the land bank, which is funded by buyers of property. So I think we just should keep all those things in mind as we go forward. Thanks.
And I'll just keep in mind that 5 + 8 is 13.
There you go.
That's my number. Okay, in order of operation, Tucker, back to you. Okay, go to Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I couldn't put it down fast enough, but.
Okay, I won't hold you to it if you want to.
No, I do have something to say. So I had forgotten about what Penny just brought up, and Penny just said everything far more eloquently than I could have. This is simply my personal opinion. I am scared that the community at large is going to become exhausted by their last several years of generosity. And anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That's all. There's no question about the noble intent, and I think it's great. I've lived here a long time, and you know, the tide turns, and we don't, pardon me, I would hate to see this entire boat kind of, you know, hit a sandbar, so to speak. That's all.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Tucker, you're the last man standing.
I'm trying to keep standing. So I just wanted to mention, and I'm not sure if she's still with us here, but there was a select board member from Provincetown who was on our Zoom a few moments ago. I was able, along with Laura, to attend a select board meeting in Provincetown via Zoom last night, where they had George Ruther from Vail come and talk about their Indeed program. And it was an extremely well attended meeting, very good presentation by George, and a lot of thoughtful comments from community members. I will circulate a link to that so that folks can check out. It's definitely worthwhile. But, you know, one of the many things that George pointed to in what Vail has been doing is a goal cannot be accomplished without the means for doing so. And I think that we, you know, have really, we've had tremendous one-off community support from town meeting toward addressing housing need, but we really need a stable, ongoing, material amount of money to finally address the issue in whole, in particular home ownership opportunity for year-rounders. And the type of thing that Brooke is mentioning, I think certainly is in that direction, as well as Citizen Article, as well as the housing bank. But we need something, and I'm just very encouraged by all of the conversation around this topic.
Thank you, Tucker. Tucker, is the meeting that you watched yesterday and the link to it something that we should ask Kaylee to provide to either the website or Florencia to circulate? Is it a more broadly, is the opportunity for the broader community to make sure we get it out there?
We certainly could put it on our website for folks who were interested. I don't know if it's like a town blast from Florencia type of thing. There are some, you know, you get into the weeds on some stuff, but it's a very good presentation by George, and talked a lot about changing the mindset of how they went about addressing the issue in Vail, and putting a moonshot out there, being willing to take risks, not get it right, you know, necessarily, but better to make a big, bold move than to not. I think George himself would say he's hoping that, you know, the Vineyard or Nantucket or Provincetown or all the above will come up with a better 2.0 version. And so we can really learn from what they're doing there. But my main point in bringing up George was, you know, their recognition, the Vail City Council, that they have to put their money where their mouth is to address the problem.
And so maybe when you circulate that, we can push it out into the community a little bit. Brooke?
Well, you know, you know, what Penny's points about who pays and all of these things. And one of the interesting things about being a select board member now and not just an Affordable Housing Trust member is, you know, I see town finance in a much broader picture than I ever did before. And so to me, it's a really interesting internal debate in my head about which path is better for the trust, for the community at large, and I think is worthy of a much more robust conversation. So.
Tucker, go ahead.
I just wanted to add one thing. So you'll see in the presentation that the Vail Group established 10 kind of guiding principles, and they're not limited to 10. They add some from time to time. But number one is that housing is infrastructure, that, you know, we fund infrastructure projects as a community, schools, roads, et cetera, as a matter of course. And they have reset how they think about housing and what it means for their community to be able to operate and be vibrant from a, you know, every positive aspect. And it's gotten ingrained in how their city council and voters, you know, view their work around housing. Is really very inspirational.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that the point that Penny made earlier with respect to what happens at the ballot box is really critical, because I know that there are going to be a significant number of another initiatives with respect to town projects that are going to be out there to be looking for funding. And the fact is that you have to get it approved first, but then you have to also get it approved at the ballot. And we have seen in the past that many things die there, even though they appear to be good. And even though housing is goal number one of the select board, I think it's a really issue of concern to me in terms of making sure what we're putting forward, how it's going forward, and the opportunity of it getting approved with the understanding that it has to be approved twice.
Penny.
Oh, sorry, I'm clapping. I meant to raise my hand. That's funny. I think, aren't we supposed to be talking about our specific funding for fiscal year 2024?
Well, so thank you for bringing it back. So I think, I don't know that this is definitely a discussion. I don't know that there's an action, right? And so this is related to funding for warrant articles. The way the agenda item is written, I think we need to be making a budget request for funding. And so it seems like we may need to bifurcate and look for agenda items, and a future one being, what are we looking for our budget request? Right? What you're getting at, Penny?
Just through you to Tucker, what is our deadline on that?
Well, so the town administration is incorporated into the budget, you know, the same level of funding that we've had in recent years. And the idea is that given the use of some of the capital budget funds that are allocated to the trust, there are remaining funds that would support, for example, another 10 million bonding authorization. So that is what I talked to Libby about with regard to, call it the status quo. What Brooke brought up is a brand new item.
Okay.
So
well, Brooke brought up too. She brought the brand new $5 million potential override, and then the remaining $2 million is what you're referencing. And so Brooke will get clarification, come back to us at a future meeting, what that looks like.
So just to finish.
I'm going to come. Let me come to Brooke because I just called her out. Sorry, Penny. Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I mean, that is already included in the proposed budget.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Penny.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to wrap this up, clearly we should, have an opportunity in the future to have more discussion about all the different funding sources for affordable and attainable housing. And I just lost my train of thought, COVID brain. Sorry.
No problem.
Mm.
All right, so are there? It feels like to me that this is a rolling agenda item, and I'm seeing a fair amount of head shaking. So I guess we'll just keep this open, not take action, continue discussion. Stay tuned. It's the feeling I'm getting.
Yeah, I would call it monitoring of the annual budget as it relates to the Affordable Housing Trust. You
Okay.
know, or the warrant, the town warrant as it relates to funding for the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay, perfect. Penny?
This is the last thing I'm going to say on this, I promise. I just remembered what I was going to say, which is I don't think the Affordable Housing Trust should be taking positions on articles at town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, anyone else? I have a member of the public, Robert Little. Mr. Little, floor is yours. If you're speaking, you're on mute. I can't see you, so I don't know. There you go.
Thank you for the reminder. I simply want to thank all of you for your inspiration and your recent comments about futures, Brooke, Penny, Billy, Tucker, all of you. And thank you so much for really bright prospects for 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else on this item? Moving to the next. Introduction to down payment assistance pilot program discussion. Are we ready for this, Brooke? I think this was an item you wanted to put on. Can I throw to you to lead the discussion?
So I just want to introduce the concept with the caveat details to come. We've been tossing around the idea of a down payment assistance program for a really long time, right, Rima? What the inspiration to move on this now is twofold. It is in a rising interest rate market that we're experiencing now. People's ability to qualify for mortgages is more stressed than ever around the acquisition of deed restricted home ownership opportunities that are currently in process at Sandpiper Place in particular. And so Tucker and I were contacted by Beth Ann Meehan at Cape Cod 5, who expressed, I would say, significant concern that the applicants who are coming through her desk will not be able to purchase the homes at the 80 and 175. There's 6 of them at 80% AMI because the mortgage payments are so much higher than they would have been at last year's interest rates or 2 years ago's interest rates, and therefore they're not being able to be approved for a full 95% or 90% mortgage because of the payment structure currently in the current interest rate environment. And so there is a motivation around those units in particular for us to consider a DAP program. And so Tucker and Beth Ann and I met and we sort of spitballed some ideas, and we asked her to present, you know, a sort of a document that explains where the shortfalls are for people without revealing personal information, just sort of a general picture of the applicant pool that they're seeing. We sort of came up with a rough framework for a down payment assistance program that, for instance, might be something like this. And obviously, I don't think we're really prepared for a long discussion on this today, but I just wanted people to start thinking about it. That the trust might add a second mortgage similar to our closing cost assistance, that would loan $2 for every down payment dollar that the buyer was able to come up with on their own, up to a certain cap per property. And that would be different for a 80% unit than a 175% unit because the price point and down payment requirements are different. And so this program might help bridge the gap between a down payment that they might be able to come up with it if they were given a 95% mortgage, but they can only qualify for a 90% mortgage, and it would help bridge that gap for people. And so it would be really similar in legal structure to our closing cost assistance program in a lot of ways. And by putting a cap, we would minimize our risk exposure. And it would recycle on refinance or sale, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think it needs to be super complex. It may make the difference of these homes actually being truly affordable to the people who are applying for them. So that's my rough sketch.
Thank you, Brooke. And to your point, yes, we have been talking about this for years and years and years. So it would be great to move some of the concept along, look forward to the bullet points as far as what the bank is seeing as pain points that we're able to resolve. So thank you for up to this point. Penny?
Sorry for talking so much. I've talked to two lenders who have approached me about this as well. And historically, they don't, when they lend, they want housing costs to be 30% of somebody's income. And they're now pushing that debt to income ratio up to 43% in order to make these loans work on Richmond. Both of them said the same thing. So I agree, it's a critical need. I don't know how fast we could get something going. I do like the idea very much of a pilot program, if there's some way to do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Penny. Any other thoughts or comments? All right, Brooke, so we'll look for that to be distributed by Haley to board members and then for a future meeting to get a greater idea. All right, thank you on that. So, okay, back to you, Brooke.
And just so we know, this is going to require quick action. This is not, I mean, if we're going to help this particular tranche of affordable houses, it's going to require us to move pretty quickly. And hey, nothing like a deadline to get us to cross something over the finish line.
Rima?
So this is something from our operational budget. I mean, you know, where would this, okay. So, you know, we'll need to make that point with FinCom.
You're saying okay because you're seeing affirmative head shaking from Brooke? I just want to make sure.
Yes, yes.
Because you asked a question, I want to make sure it gets answered audibly. Brooke, can you answer that?
That is my understanding, though. Tucker's got his hands up in a face, so.
Okay. Tucker, and then I'll come to you, Vicky.
Well, I got all kinds of bases today, but Vicky may be able to guide us a little bit. So typically when we're using money, I mean, first of all, we're awaiting this detail from Beth Ann, unless I missed it, Brooke. So we need to get that information. But secondly, conversationally with her, these are not small sums of money. So this would not come out of our operational budget, but our, you know, I guess the pool that really would be large enough is the capital budget. However, typically, like, we're getting something for that money, like usually a deed restriction or some sort of interest like that. Vicky can guide us on whether or not the current funds that we have available to us, those types of funds, could actually be used for this purpose, because these are already deed restricted homes.
Vicky, the floor is yours.
So, you know, it's Tucker and I briefly had this discussion about the funding source for this type of program. it can't come from from the trust operational funds. It does need to come from some form of funding that's going to enable the development or creation or support of affordable housing. There are different programs that you can set up, like rent, that you would set up like rental assistance programs and things like that. All of those need funding sources. And so I have the question as to where your funds come from, like say your closing cost program. Where is that money coming from to fund that? Those sums are not as large as what these funds would be either for each unit. So I think that we need to think about where we're going to get this money from. And if we want to establish something that's going to enable us to do that, some kind of warrant article funding, then we need to think about that. But I don't think that there's something right away.
So just so I'm clear, we don't have an existing bucket to pull these funds from for what we're talking about in a pilot program for these units.
I don't think so. I think I'd have to look at that bonding article again. Tucker's got his hand up here, so maybe he has an answer.
Tucker?
Well, not a better one than yours, Vicky, but I mean, Vicky and I did, we looked at one of the recent bonding articles where I think the language for the bonding articles has been fairly consistent the last few years as to the use of those funds. And the one that we looked at in our conversation the other day, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Vicky, but I think Vicky said, I'm not sure actually that language would allow the funds to be used for this type of purpose. So I guess I'm wondering out loud here whether or not the bonding authority that we just were discussing in conjunction with Article 10, that we add language that would allow this type of thing to happen under that.
Yeah.
Thank you for finding that detail. Go ahead, Vicky. Like these details.
I agree. I mean, we've talked about this, Tucker and I. So I am very doubtful that most recent bonding authority is going to allow us to do this. So I think that we are going to need to find some other mechanism for the next town meeting. And this is the opportunity for us to be able to create that, I think, perhaps an article.
Thank you, Vicky. Brooke?
Well, that'll be too late for these houses. So just something to think about. Maybe we can convince someone to donate the money.
In all seriousness, that's not a bad idea, but that's a conversation worth having if we're making forward progress on a sustainable program, right? Like, so it seems like we need to make that progress. Rima?
I think we need to look and see what kind of grants, local grants are available that we might be able to apply for, because, we had applied for this with the hospital years ago and we were turned down, but, I know we just missed the golf course. But I think it's important to look at, and if anything is coming up grant-wise that we can get on, it's easier than fundraising.
Rima, can I ask, it seems like you might be a little more plugged into what the opportunities are. Can I ask you to check calendars and see what is out there?
I usually, the community foundation lists stuff. That's probably the easiest way to find things. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Any more on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down the list. Other business. Regular meeting, January 17th, 12:30. We've lightly touched base on this. It's not on here because it happened today, but we're going to have a special meeting next Thursday at 10 a.m. There any other new business or other business? Seeing none, board comments? Any board comments for items not on the agenda? Brooke?
Should we consider going to bi-monthly meetings? Or semi-monthly, whatever. I can
Whatever
never
twice,
remember.
yeah, whatever twice is.
Yeah, in February and March in the lead up to town meeting, getting them on the calendar. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm worried that agendas this long, we lose people and voices get lost, and just would ask if others feel the same.
I don't want to say this out loud, but I think we should probably just be meeting twice a month forever, but that's where to make real progress. I think that's the direction this is going. But in the short term, leading up to town meeting, I think that's a reasonable, my opinion is that's a reasonable. I'd rather have shorter meetings.
Yeah.
Ping stuff off or have the opportunity to cancel one. Go ahead, Brooke.
So I have perpetually blocked off, because we did this for a while in the past. That's the first Tuesday of the month and the third at this time. So maybe we should ask everyone to block it off to the
Can we
best of their
start?
ability.
Is it possible, Brian, through you to Brooke, if we start that not on the 3rd of January, given that we will have just met on the 29th?
Yeah, I think it's probably the 17th and then February
7th,
yeah.
7th, and then the 21st.
Sort of, that's technically not the, what is it, the second and third? First and third?
First and third. Yep.
First and third, okay. Got it.
Why don't Haley and I circulate a proposed schedule for 2023?
Thank you. One comment that I have, I've been thinking about, something else brought it up, but the repricing of the covenant levels is something we're going to see happen. It's my expectation that Housing Nantucket's 150% AMI will reprice after January 1st. And this may be one of the first years we see the number go down. It's my understanding median incomes are up about $16,000 annually. But with the significant rise in interest rates, I expect the max price of the 150 unit to be coming down pretty significantly. I had mentioned this to you in a conversation, Tucker, and I'm hopeful we can learn from DHCD what their repricing structure looks like moving forward. If I understand correctly, any existing units that are out there in lottery now are from a pre-existing date, not the future date that the repricing happens. So any future lotteries or covenant homes, we will see that happen. Just something for consideration. I don't know. I won't pretend to know the math or what it's going to be, but it's coming. Brooke?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Ann this morning about this. I suggest that once it's been repriced, we ask Ann to do an update at our next meeting.
Great. They historically, they do a good job of sending out kind of a memorandum notice. I know that it circulates through, I've seen it circulate through the real estate community in the past after the first of the year. But I am curious if we can figure out what DHCD's schedule for repricing is and when that information gets distributed as related to 80% and 100% units. Executive session. Wow, we're here. Item number 16. Anyone feel like I'm making a motion for the purpose to consider the purchase, exchange, lease value of real property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of a public body?
So moved.
Not to return into open session. There a second?
Second.
Second from Rima, by roll call. Penny Dye.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
I got Rima. Did I do Penny? I'm sorry. You all just moved.
Aye.
Rima Sherry and Brian Sullivan's aye. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.